A new week is here and a full slate of NFL action. Week 1 certainly threw us some curveballs, and now we have all the answers because we have seen 1 week of NFL football. This is your Sunday preview here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. I'm Tim Murray, and I'm joined by Amal, Shah. Danielle Alvari will join us in just a little bit. And there was so much to unpack after week 1, Amal, and I love the overreactions, the Monday morning quarterbacks, the everything I thought I knew is so wrong. So let's jump out of the gates with some overreactions. Is this an overreaction, Amal? The NFC Championship game will have a pair of NFC West teams in it. Is that an overreaction?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, when you look at it right now, which two teams besides maybe Seattle, the 49ers lost at home to Arizona. Right. I don't think the Cardinals are necessarily a contender at this point for the NFC Championship game. I don't understand why everyone just blindly overlooks the Green Bay Packers. They've got a future Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. This team put up points against what's supposed to be or perceived to be a very good defense team in Minnesota. I just look at this team and I think they're being absolutely disrespected. I love Seattle, but to me, I thought the 49ers were going to take a step back a little bit this year based on the improvements they had offensively and defensively last year. It's very hard to sustain that level. And so for me, I think it's a complete overreaction.
I do think it's an overreaction, but I think the Seattle Seahawks will be the NFC winner this year. I was very impressed. They let Russ cook from the jump down there in Atlanta, and it's going to be a fascinating game on Sunday Night Football. One we will absolutely get into in just a little bit. Seattle laying 4 against the New England Patriots. Is this an overreaction, Amal? The NFC East champ will be 8-8 or worse.
I think it's an overreaction. I still think, remember, Dallas gets to play these teams 6 times. That always helps. Philadelphia gets now 5 more matchups against these opponents because they lost to Washington. So I think that's a complete overreaction. You know, Tim, if you think about this, Dallas should go 3-0 at home against their division, probably at worst 2-1 on the road, and with the possibility of going 3-0, so go 6-0 within the division. You're trying to tell me they're only going to win 2 games out of their remaining 10 games, now 9 after the loss to the Rams. So for me, I think it's a complete overreaction. I think Dallas winds up at about 9-7, maybe even 10-6.
Well, the thing you do have to remember, the challenging schedule for the NFC East this year, because the crossover is the AFC North and the NFC West. The NFC West we just talked about. So some challenges there for these teams. But I think the Cowboys at the end of the day are too talented to go 8-8. And yes, like you mentioned, Amal, they get the opportunity. Both the Cowboys and the Eagles, and I know the Eagles lost to the Washington football team in week 1, but they do get an opportunity to play both Washington and New York 2 times. So I tend to agree with you. It is an overreaction, but boy, I don't think many people anticipated the Washington football team to be in sole possession of first place at any point this year.
Yeah, but if you look at it, I don't think a lot of people thought the Giants were going to beat the Steelers.
No.
I thought the Rams and the Cowboys were a very tough matchup. Opening night in Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium, you have to give a slight edge to the Rams in that particular matchup. And Washington, at home division game, we know how good their defensive front 7 was. They proved it against the Eagles. And then the other thing is, look, Michael Lombardi said it on Sunday last week on the Lombardi line. The Philadelphia Eagles, since that Super Bowl win, are 19-16. This is not an elite football team. I don't understand why there's this perception that they are. You know, there's a lot of question marks for me with that team.
Final overreaction. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Before we jump into our 2-minute warning and we look at 8 games right off the jump, which games we like, Jacoby Brissett will replace Phillip Rivers because of performance at some point in the 2020 season. Is this an overreaction to week number 1, Amal?
It is, but I'm going to tell you, I looked at the schedule of the Colts, and I don't think it's going to happen because when you look at it, they've got, obviously this weekend, they've got a game against the Vikings. Then they've got the Jets, at the Bears, at the Browns, Bengals. Very manageable games. So I think Rivers, who has the trust of Frank Reich, will be just fine. Jacoby Brissett had an opportunity last year. I just don't think Frank Reich was on board with him. So for me, the answer is no.
And Frank Reich, stop letting Phillip Rivers throw 40 times. Let's give the ball to Jonathan Taylor. Somebody has an offensive rookie future in the former Wisconsin running back. Let's get this thing started.
Welcome into Sunday Preview. I'm Danielle Alvari here with Tim Murray and Amal Shah, and this is the 2-minute drill. Amal and Tim will have just 2 minutes to talk about each NFL game, starting with the Rams and the Eagles. Tim.
Amal, I think this is a big spot and a bounce-back spot for the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. The first play I made this entire week was Philadelphia at a pick at home against the LA Rams. And the big reason why that offensive line last weekend, Amal, was dreadful by Philadelphia. Let up 8 sacks. I mean, everything just fell apart in that game against Washington. An embarrassing effort, honestly, for a team that has aspirations to win this NFC East. But Lane Johnson will be back. And if you just look at the splits when he is back, it is incredibly different. He's like a safety blanket there for Carson Wentz. Miles Sanders also returns for Philadelphia. And I just think this is a spot of a little bit of an overreaction, Amal. We see that from time, right? From week 1 to week 2. Over the summer, Philadelphia was laying 4 in this game. Now it's a pick. I like the Eagles in this spot at a pick.
Tim, I think you bring up an excellent point about the fact that at one point this team was -4 in this matchup. Now all of a sudden you're looking at a team that's currently sitting as a pick 'em at home. A lot of people have an affinity for the Rams based on last Sunday's performance. They left a lot of points on the field against the Cowboys. You're going to get a little bit of a healthier, as you alluded to, offensive line for the Eagles with Lane Johnson. Alshon Jeffrey is questionable. Miles Sanders back in the mix here. But to me, this is a tough game. I want to see how this Rams offense can translate away from their home. And remember another thing. The NFL shortened season. You're talking about already, this can be 12.5% of your season. Eagles going to be in a must-win mode. Very important game. I tend to agree with you. I think it's tough to take the Rams in this spot.
And the Rams did have some solid contributions from veteran running back Malcolm Brown. He had 79 yards on the ground. Sean McVay said expect a little bit more from rookie Cam Akers this week. Also, interesting little nugget. You've got the number 1 and number 2 picks from 2016. But once again, give me Philadelphia.
All right, moving on. Atlanta at Dallas. Amal.
You know, this is a tough game for me from the numbers perspective. Sitting at 4, I would lean towards the Cowboys at home. I thought they missed some opportunities. Mike McCarthy with a very questionable coaching decision. But I go back to 2008. Mike McCarthy. I knew he couldn't coach back then, but somehow they've recycled him. Congratulations to the Cowboys on that. But to me, this is a game I'd be looking at the total. It's already at 54. Opened at 52 earlier in the week. Didn't think it would sit there. 2 explosive offenses. Neither team has a consistent semblance of defense. I like Dallas here, but I wouldn't really bet the house on this one. I think you look more at the total. I think this one flies in this controlled environment.
Amal, one thing I'm starting to learn, and I love it, is you do not hide your feelings about coaches. And this is a game where, I don't know, it's dealer's choice because how can you trust Dan Quinn? I saw this stat. Since Dan Quinn has become the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, if you remove the 2016 season when they made their run to the Super Bowl and their coordinator was Kyle Shanahan, opponents are 39-26 ATS against Atlanta. Atlanta got smoked last weekend by Seattle. The secondary was absolutely awful. So I think this is an opportunity. You know, we talked about Philadelphia in a bounce-back spot. I don't love Dallas here. It's a lot of points to be laying, but I would lean Dallas because you look at those young receivers. CeeDee Lamb really stepped up last week, having 59 yards receiving, and I think the weapons that the Cowboys have offensively for Dak Prescott to throw to, and I just can't trust Dan Quinn. I will lean Dallas in this spot. Not an official play for me, but I would certainly lean Dallas in this spot, laying the 4 at home.
Amal, any more McCarthy jabs you want to get in?
No, but CeeDee Lamb went to school at 0U. Learn to count to 3 next time if you go to school in Norman.
Tim,
I got nothing there to go on the Oklahoma bashing. But, yeah, Mike McCarthy, when it's 20-17 and you're inside the 15-yard line in the fourth quarter, just kick the field goal. Let's tie the game instead of going for it.
Tim Murray with the great advice. All right, moving on. Detroit at Green Bay. Tim, why don't you kick this one off?
Oh, man. At some point, can I give Detroit fans a hug? I feel.
I wouldn't recommend it.
I feel bad for them. You're up 23-6 against Mitch Trubisky, but once again, you look at the sideline, Amal, and there you have another coach that no one can trust.
I agree with you completely, but I'm going to kind of defer to Danielle on this one. Danielle, you went to UCLA. UCLA basketball has toiled in anonymity for a long time now. How do you feel? Explain to Lions fans what they should do.
Mick is doing a great job. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm sure.
Not take this UCLA
the NIT, here they come in Westwood. Anyway, the Detroit Lions, when you look at this team, to me, they played very good football for 45 minutes. But the problem is, Tim, the football games are 60 minutes. And until you really realize that in Detroit, you're not going to win games, but they're in a ton of games. 6 points, division rival. I'd be more apt to take the Lions. I know a lot of people are enamored of what we saw at Green Bay up in the Dome. I don't know if the Packers are quite that good. I think the Vikings are a little bit worse this year. I think the Lions are still a pretty decent football team. If it hits 7, you got to take Detroit here.
Yeah, this is a spot too where I'm not racing to lay the 6 points on the Green Bay Packers, but yeah, for Detroit, you drop that pass in the end zone, Amal. I mean, that is a team now that has lost 10 straight games, and this stat is staggering. Matt Patricia became the head coach of the Detroit Lions in 2018. Detroit has now lost 11 games in which they have had a fourth quarter lead under Matt Patricia. Aaron Rodgers was as good as you could have asked for. It seemed like the fact that the Packers went out and drafted a quarterback, traded up for a quarterback in Jordan Love, is a little extra fire under his behind. But I do agree with you. I think Minnesota has a lot of issues defensively. They took advantage of that. I'm not going to lay the 6 here in a division game, but I think the Packers do win this game. We'll talk about teasers later in the show. Maybe if you want to tease it down to near a pick, if it's at 6.5, get it to a half point. That could be a possibility, but a no play for me. But those numbers, once again, my condolences to Lions fans. It's been tough.
All right, perfect timing. Moving on, Carolina at Tampa Bay. What are we going to see out of Brady? Amal?
You know, it's tough to say. Remember, the New Orleans Saints are one of the best teams in the NFL when you look at the complete roster. Up and down, they've got talent everywhere, offense, defense, special teams. And in the Dome, we know how difficult they are to beat. But for me in this matchup, this number's a little bit high because you have Christian McCaffrey in that backfield. Remember, Teddy Bridgewater is a guy, Danielle, that doesn't turn the football over. I think he's a very underrated quarterback. Tim, we want everyone to be Aaron Rodgers or to be Patrick Mahomes. The reality is those guys are so few and far in between. And I look at this matchup. Look, Father Time is still undefeated, and as good as Brady has been, you're starting to see cracks in the facade going back to last season. This would be a tough number for me to lay with Tampa. If you're betting this game, I think you have to take Carolina. But this is one I'm going to stay away from because I didn't watch that much of the Raiders-Panthers game. I want to see what Carolina is before I jump on them first.
And you know this is going to be a spot. You know, people are still going to be backing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of those big names that Amal alluded to, and because it's Tom Brady and you think he'll bounce back. This is a massive number to be laying, especially at home in a division game. You know, what I'm curious, Amal, about is that total. Sitting there at 47, Carolina proved that they can't really stop anybody. Derek Carr and the Raiders went up and down the field. The first 8 possessions, they scored 6 times on the Carolina Panthers, but the Panthers also proved that they can hang. They can score some points. They've got some young, talented pieces offensively. So the play for me, if I were to make one on this game, would be the over, because I do think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to come out like they have something to prove. You had Bruce Arians calling out Tom Brady to the media earlier this week, which a lot of people took it and ran with it. So no side for me, but I'm looking long and hard at that total, a possibility of a shootout, because I just don't believe in this Panthers defense whatsoever. I know Matt Rule is a defensive guy by trade, thinking about his time at Baylor and at Temple, but he just doesn't have the guys yet. A lot of youth, a lot of inexperience defensively, Amal. So if a play for me, I would lean over.
All right, moving on. Washington at Arizona. Tim, you want to kick this one off?
Washington, stunning result last week. No doubt blew out a lot of survivor picks. People picking the Philadelphia Eagles in their survivor pools in week 1, or teasers, because that was a number that you could easily tease down almost to a pick. An impressive effort by Washington, and I give them a lot of credit. 8 sacks them all in that game. We've talked about this defensive line. We talked about it last week. A lot of young talent there. Heck, even Ryan Kerrigan came out and had 2 sacks in that game. So there's a lot of guys on that defensive front that are impressive. But the question for me is this offense. The offense for Washington last week only had 239 yards. There's a big question there with Dwayne Haskins. Who are their playmakers? Really only have one receiver in Terry McLaurin. Antonio Gibson, they have high hopes for him, but what are they going to get? And then you've got the excitement of Kyler Murray. He has found DeAndre Hopkins. By the way, great job, Bill O'Brien, trading him away for a second-round pick. 14 catches, 151 yards. Last Thursday night, I think Deshaun Watson was saying, wait, where's DeAndre? Why is he not? Oh, yeah, Kyler Murray has him now. So this Arizona team, really intriguing there. Laying 7's a big number, but I had to lean Arizona in this spot.
Another huge question for Washington. What is their mascot? Amal?
Well, I can't answer that question, but I can tell you this. I love the Arizona Cardinals in this matchup. I liked Washington at home last week. I thought it was too many points in a division game. Great opportunity for them. They capitalized on Carson Wentz being what I know him to be, which is a complete fraud. And the reality of it is now you're going to face a quarterback who can flat out move in the pocket tremendously quick. This is a kid at Allen High School, Allen, Texas, 41-0 his career. We saw what he did in Norman as he transferred in from A&M. This kid is so quick. Remember, San Francisco, with that great pass rush, only had 2 sacks. Yes, the Redskins had 8 sacks, as Tim alluded to, against Philadelphia, but the difference was that was a decimated by injuries offensive line for the Eagles. This Arizona team is healthier. You've got, as you mentioned, Nuke on the outside. We didn't even talk about Larry Fitzgerald. Christian Kirk. This team is dangerous. Chandler Jones is one of those pass rushers that nobody ever talks about. All he does is get double-digit sacks every year. I think Dwayne Haskins is going to throw a couple of picks. I think Arizona wins this game comfortably. And for me, this is not a bet on Arizona based on the result in San Francisco. This is a bet against Washington.
Perfect. All right. Kansas City at the LA Chargers.
You know everybody's going to be on Kansas City, Amal, and why not? I mean, they've been a covering machine since last year all the way through in week 1. They were laying a bunch of points against the Houston Texans. They were the biggest favorite in week 1, and guess what they did? They covered against the Houston Texans. So a ton of points on the road. This is the Chargers' first opportunity to go to the glorious SoFi Stadium, as we were reminded time after time on Sunday Night Football. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was phenomenal. If you have a future on him to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, not a bad start. I have serious questions about this Chargers offense, Amal. Tyrod Taylor, lowest completion percentage of any starting quarterback. He doesn't turn the ball over, but very inefficient. However, the Chiefs are down their 2 top cornerbacks. Ward broke his hand in week 1, and Bashaud Breeland is dealing with a suspension. So you look at, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Can they get something going there for the Chargers? At this point, I don't know. I don't know if I have the guts to go against the Chiefs, but I don't know about laying 9 in this spot.
Tim, I couldn't agree with you more. When you look at this matchup, to me, the difficulty is going to be for the Chargers. Can they keep pace offensively? I don't see it. Tyrod Taylor's captain check down. I love quarterbacks that don't make mistakes, but if you've got Lawrence Taylor on your defense, you can do that. This team is not quite that good defensively. I think Kansas City in that dome should be able to put up some points on that fast field. Look for Tyreek Hill to have a huge day. I think Patrick Mahomes throws for about 275 or more and 2 touchdowns plus. I think Kansas City wins this game. But again, if you start laying 9 points in division road games, you're going to be in the poorhouse very quickly.
All right, Baltimore at Houston. What do we think?
This is another spot. Once again, we'll talk about teasers later on in the show, and we'll get into the philosophies of, if you like to lay teasers, what the type of juice is. But this is another one of those games, 7 points. You could bring it down to 1, but you're talking about a team going on the road. How desperate is Houston going to be? But Baltimore's another one of those teams, Amal, that every time you bet against them, look, I bet against them last weekend. I was dead wrong. I mean, they absolutely obliterated the Baltimore Ravens. And 2 guys we talked about last week on the show. I love the offseason that Baltimore had. They go and trade for Calais Campbell. They get him for pennies on the dollar from Jacksonville. And then in the draft, they got Patrick Queen out of LSU. He comes out 12 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, including a sack. And J.K. Dobbins also found the end zone. So Baltimore continues to add to it. Lamar Jackson picked up where he left off. Obviously, we went back to, we mentioned already DeAndre Hopkins and how much we know that Deshaun Watson was looking for him. Will Fuller did step up. He hasn't gotten injured yet, so that's a positive there for the Houston Texans. He had 8 catches for 112 yards. Wouldn't lay the 7 with the Baltimore Ravens on the road, but it is something to think about if you want to include them in a 2-team teaser.
This is an interesting matchup. You mentioned, I think Baltimore's a terrific football team. They're just a shade below the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC, in my opinion. But I'm not a person that lays this type of number on the road. I think it's always very difficult, particularly when a team like the Texans is at home. So for me, this is going to be a stay-away spot. I would advise people, if you're not involved in a game, but you're going to watch and you think you have a feel for it, get involved in the end game. So many times if Houston goes out and scores, now all of a sudden you're going to get the Ravens maybe at -3.5 or 4.5, depending on what the number is. So kind of adjust based on that. You don't have to play every one of these games pre-game. Just kind of look at one that you really have an affinity for, stick to that, and you'll have a lot more success.
All right, and finally, New England at Seattle.
This is a phenomenal matchup for Sunday Night Football. We've got 2 great coaches, believe it or not. Pete Carroll's actually older than Bill Belichick. You wouldn't think it by the way they look, but Pete Carroll is 69, Bill Belichick 68. And the whole offseason, there was this social media wave, Amal, of let Russ cook from the start. And they did that. They let him, they took the shackles off. Every fourth quarter came around last year, and they're saying, okay, Russ, go do your thing now. Do it from the start. And they did that against Atlanta. He was absolutely unstoppable down there against the Falcons. Russell Wilson, 322 for four touchdowns. Jamal Adams, also the offseason acquisition for the Seattle Seahawks, had a big game there, 12 tackles and 2 tackles for a loss. Amal. Cam Newton, he looked good. However, to me, it's unsustainable. I'm laying the 4 with the Seattle Seahawks. I know betting against Bill Belichick as a dog is incredibly unprofitable. However, I think the Seattle team is superior to the New England Patriots.
You look at this matchup, you allude to the 4 touchdowns that Russ had last week. He had 4 incompletions. Think about that, okay? If you're playing a video game, you couldn't have as many touchdowns as you do incompletions. That's how good this guy is. I think he's been one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL for a long time. I'm not as sold on the Patriots. I know they had a tremendous offensive day. They converted 5 out of 10 third downs, 29 first downs. But for me, when I look at this game, I would have to lean towards Seattle. But I'm not thrilled about laying 4. I've not been a person who's bet on the Patriots for the last 2 decades, but I also have not been betting against them. So for me, this is going to be a stay away. And I think this is one, again, you go back to an in-game situation. It gets below a field goal, you can take the Hawks. If it gets over a touchdown, you can take the Pats.
Yeah, final thought here, as I am going to be the brave soul and go against Bill Belichick as a dog. His record as an underdog is 23-9-2 ATS. So, yes, I'm going against that remarkable record, but give me the Seahawks. I'll lay the 4 on Sunday night with the better football team.
And there you have it. That is our 2-minute drill. We have a lot more to preview for you guys coming up. We're going to be talking NFC West on Sunday Preview, so stick with us. This is your last chance to subscribe to VSiN before our rates increase. Get the Pro Football Betting Guide with over 100 pages of NFL betting analysis and the College Football Betting Guide with insights on every team. Plus, daily emails including our experts' best bets on every sport, 24/7 video streaming, weekly betting analysis for every NFL game, and Point Spread Weekly, our digital betting magazine. Sign up now. Next week, the prices will be going up. Visit vsin.com/subscribe today to lock in your subscription, including our football betting guides at our best prices of the year. That's vsin.com/subscribe. Tim.
Thanks, Danielle. Tim Murray, Amal Shah, Danielle Alvari. It is the Sunday preview, and we looked at 8 games. We will get to the leftovers here in just a little bit. But Amal, it's never too early to look at some futures. And after week 1, it left some questions in 3 particular divisions. And let's start with a positive one in the NFC West. Arizona beats the San Francisco 49ers, a pretty surprising result to some. The Rams beat the Cowboys, and one that the books were very happy to see the Rams win on Sunday Night Football. And then the Seahawks took care of business in Atlanta. So you've got the odds right there, Amal. Seahawks now the favorites at plus 180. I like them to win this division preseason. They were 2-1. 49ers dropped to plus 190. Rams at plus 350. And the Cardinals 1-0 at plus 450. Amal, anything jumping out at you as these odds courtesy of DraftKings?
No, I think they're pretty much right where they should be. I still think Seattle should be the team to beat in this division. I'm not as big on Jimmy Garoppolo as maybe some other people are. I think this Rams team is dangerous. And the way people talk about the Rams, this year we've got a format of 7 from each conference making the playoffs. The Rams would have been in the playoffs last year if they were taking 7 teams from each conference. They had 9 wins. I think they're a team that can be right there on the cusp as long as Jared Goff can perform effectively. I like Malcolm Brown in the backfield. In terms of Arizona, I just want to see it a little bit more consistently. I want to see how long they can play well. I know offensively they're going to be great, but can their defense hold up over 16 games? That's a big question mark for me.
Yeah, I'm still on the Seahawks to win this division, but curious to see the Cardinals. They play Washington this weekend. They're laying a touchdown at home. Let's go to the NFC East, where Washington is the only team with a win. They are the first place football team, Amal, and they are now 7-1 to win the NFC East. The Cowboys, despite their loss in week 1 against the Rams, they are minus 110. The Eagles plus 160, and the Giants, who fell to the Steelers on Monday Night Football, sitting there at 13-1. Can I interest you on the Washington football team at 7-1?
No, because last week I said take them at 20-1.
You did. That's right.
And so to me, when you look at the matchup of these teams this weekend, Cowboys play Atlanta. It's not a foregone conclusion they're going to win that football game. You look at the Eagles. They have the Rams. I know you like the Eagles in this spot, and I would agree with you, but this is not an easy game in which you just sit there and say pencil a win in. Washington's going to have a tough game going on the road to Arizona. I like Arizona in that spot, and the Giants are in Chicago, another tough game. So you're looking at potentially 3 teams in this division starting 0-2, and the Redskins at 1-1. And so for me right now, I still think Dallas at minus 110 are good odds. I don't like Philadelphia. I don't think they're that good. I thought the Super Bowl year was more of an aberration than the norm. I think the Dallas Cowboys are still the class of this division. But if things break properly, it would not be a complete shock. This would not be Leicester City for me if Washington won this division.
I like the Cowboys, but I have questions about Mike McCarthy, as you do as well. Certainly those questions reared their ugly head. He's an upgrade over Jason Garrett, but how much of an upgrade, that remains to be seen. But the talent, in my opinion, on Dallas does trump the talent currently on Philadelphia. The AFC South, really fascinating because, Amal, I was all in on the Colts and Phillip Rivers watching every second of that game last weekend. I thought, this could be an issue. The Titans there at even money to win the division, the Texans at 4-1, and the Jaguars, who maybe blew up every survivor pool out there, the 1-0 Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at 13-1. Anything jump out to you in the AFC South?
I like the Titans at even money. If you watch that Denver game, they didn't play their best game. Gostkowski missed 4 kicks in that game. That hurt them. But to me, overall, you look at Derrick Henry, there's just no stopping this guy. He falls forward for 2 to 3 yards on every play. I think Corey Davis is really starting to come into his own. We know what they've got in some of the other players on that defense in terms of signing Jadeveon Clowney. I think this team is very dangerous. Tim, at a plus money price here, I think the Titans are a far better bet to win their division than the Dallas Cowboys at -110 or to win their division. I think even though the Colts could be a challenger theoretically, I think Phillip Rivers will kill you with some bad turnovers throughout the course of the season.
I was very disappointed in what I saw from Phillip Rivers. I should have known that there was a lot of excuse making last year in Los Angeles for Phillip Rivers. He made some bad throws. I do hope that the Colts give the ball a little bit more to Jonathan Taylor this week with Marlon Mack now sidelined, and we'll get into that Colts game when we return. A very interesting one is the Colts hosting the Minnesota Vikings. We got 6 games to get to in our leftovers. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sunday preview here on VSiN. Just like Thanksgiving night, Amal, we got a lot of leftovers to get to. We went through 8 games rapid fire to start the show. But that means we still have 6 more games to hit on this Sunday. It is a rich week number 2, and there's a very interesting game to start the leftovers. Vikings at the Colts. Two disappointing week one performances, and the Colts are laying 3.5 at home against Minnesota, whose defense, Minnesota's, was just shredded. No Danielle Hunter. Michael Pierce opted out, and this is a secondary that Aaron Rodgers absolutely picked apart. I don't know if Phillip Rivers has it in him to do that, but a lot of questions there for Minnesota defensively. Would you lay the 3.5 with the Colts?
Boy, I would be more apt to lay it before I would take it with the Vikings. Yannick Ngakoue, you maybe want to show up for this game? I don't know. But the reality of it is, to me, you mentioned it, I'm a big Danielle Hunter fan. I think he's one of the most underrated edge rushers in the National Football League. His 3-game absence is going to have a profound impact on Minnesota. This team, I still have question marks with Captain Checkdown Kirk Cousins himself. The reality is, if you look at the final score in that Green Bay game, it was not that close. I think they scored 23 points in that fourth quarter. I mean, they really put up some points later on, but the game was well in hand for the Packers. They couldn't stop them. I think Rivers and company bounced back. Paris Campbell really starting to emerge. We know what T.Y. Hilton can do. I think this team's going to be dangerous. You alluded to it earlier. You said Marlon Mack out with the injury. Jonathan Taylor, the Wisconsin stud, comes in. I think he's going to have a very effective day. I would lean towards the Colts here. I don't mind laying 3.5, but I would prefer to get back down to that number of 3.
I did hear some odds makers in town talk about who did they downgrade after week one, and the Vikings, Amal, were a team that they downgraded just because of the struggles defensively that they showed. Also, they lost Pat Elflein, their guard, for the season. He was placed on IR, so another big hit for Minnesota, who already had a thin offensive line. I'm not going to lay it with the Colts, but I think it is telling you something that the Colts, coming off that disappointing loss where they looked pretty suspect, are laying 3.5 against Minnesota. The odds makers are telling you something a little fishy about that line. So I would lean Colts in this spot. Big game for both of these teams, no doubt about it, who have aspirations to win their division. Giants at the Bears. Wow, Mitch Trubisky, fourth quarter Mitch, Amal. They were down 23-6, and here comes Mitchell, leading them to victory. The Bears are now laying 5.5 against the Giants. Do you ride the hot hand of Mitchell Trubisky on Sunday?
Well, I do, but it's not because of him. It's a bet against the Giants. This team was so inept. You know, Saquon Barkley had, I think it was like 5 yards. He had the second least number of yards with someone over 12 carries. The worst one ever was, by the way, a former UCLA player, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the Miami Dolphins. And the reality of it is this Giants team is struggling. Daniel Jones, they couldn't punch it in against the Steelers. I know the Steelers have an elite defense, one of the best in the National Football League, but I still like this Bears defense. They're playing against an inexperienced quarterback. Tim, for me, I'm not thrilled about laying 5.5 with that Bears offense, but I still would do it. And I think if you're a teaser bettor, I think this is a great teaser. I generally like to tease up, but this one where I'll tease down. I think the Bears win this game, and I do think they cover.
Both Amal and I will give you teasers in our final segment of this show. That's a new little wrinkle we'll throw in there in the final segment, some teasers that we like. Let's go to Jags and Titans. Betting against Gardner Minshew, as I mentioned already, blew up a lot of survivor pools. It blew up a teaser that I had. I think a lot of people, Amal, last Sunday said, wow, you moved the Colts down to 1.5 against a team in the Jaguars who wants nothing to do about winning. Well, they proved everyone wrong. They went out and they beat the Indianapolis Colts. They're getting 7.5 in Tennessee. A.J. Brown, dealing with the bone bruise, may not play for Tennessee. Tennessee, as you mentioned in the last segment, Amal, was able to sneak out with the win over Denver. Should have won by more against the Denver Broncos. I was happy they didn't. I took the 3 with Denver on Monday night. But are you going to lay it with Tennessee? 7.5 on Sunday against the Jags.
No, I'm not, because I don't think Jacksonville is quite as bad as everyone else thinks they are. Short week for the Titans. They played late Monday night. It wasn't just your traditional start time. You're in the Mountain Time Zone there, so you're coming back. It's not that bad of a flight from Denver to Nashville, but the reality is you're still traveling. Jags coming in off the high. They've got about almost a 30-hour lead on Tennessee in terms of when they played on Sunday. The other thing is Minshew, to me, covers up a lot of deficiencies. I think he was 19 for 20 last week.
Yeah.
I mean, he was unbelievable.
95%. He was incredible.
Tim, I think what gets overlooked when you look at Jacksonville is the rest of the roster. Yes, it's not that good. But Minshew is so effective, and in this game today, it's about quarterback play. If you have a quarterback, he's going to give you an opportunity to win ball games. And I think when you're looking at 7.5, it's a little bit of a big number. I would not be surprised at all if the Titans end up blowing them out. But if I were to bet this game, I would probably be looking at the Jags first, but I'm going to stay away from this one.
Let's go to Buffalo at Miami. Miami loses to New England 21-11 up in Foxborough. I thought the score may have been a little misleading, and Miami didn't play all that bad. Ryan Fitzpatrick had his questions. I'm hoping at some point in the near future we get to see Tua Tagovailoa, see what he has. We've seen enough from Ryan Fitzmagic. I'm good there. Taking on the Buffalo Bills, who looked the part. Now, once again, they played the Jets, Amal, so take that for what you will. But this is a Bills team that has a ton of talent. Zach Moss found the end zone, a guy that we talked about, I believe, on this show as a potential long shot for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
You mentioned
Bills are
it.
laying 6, though, so under a touchdown down in Miami. Can Miami keep this within the number?
Yeah, tough game for me to call. I look at Jim Kelly and that K-gun offense, Andre Reed. I think they're going to put up points. Oh, wait, no, it's not. It's none of those guys. I have no interest in this football game whatsoever. Buffalo's got the much better defense, but for me, this is a complete stay away. I don't know. The one thing I love and respect about Brian Flores is the effort his teams give. They were in that ball game in New England. They came up a little bit short against the number there. But to me, Buffalo's got to show more consistency. They played the Jets in the final score. They dominated that football game, but they really didn't do that much offensively from a consistency standpoint. This is a complete stay away, Tim. I wish this was Danny Marino versus Jim Kelly.
Let's get to, let's rapid fire here. I'll take this one. You take the final one. 49ers at the Jets. Jets getting 7 at home against the 49ers. This could also be a potential teaser spot if you want to take the 49ers and push them down to 1. I like the total in this one to go under 42. I don't know what the Jets are going to do offensively. No Le'Veon Bell. Jamison Crowder likely out, but the 49ers are dealing with a ton of injuries. Richard Sherman placed on the IR. George Kittle, game time decision. So I like the under here, 42 against the Jets and 49ers. Wrap us up, Amal. Broncos at the Steelers, and the Steelers laying 7.
Yeah, I think this is a game the Steelers win going away. I think this team is too good defensively. They played Monday night. Very short trip, though, from New Jersey, actually, back to Pittsburgh. Denver playing that late Monday night game. I think they're going to struggle. I don't think they have enough consistency on the offensive side of the ball. And remember the other thing, Tim, the Titans were able to move the ball. They just couldn't convert when they got inside the red zone or on field goals. I think Pittsburgh with this offense combined with that defense wins this game and covers the 7 here.
Yeah, and Drew Lock, I believe Pro Football Focus Amal rated him as the worst Week 1 quarterback. I was very unimpressed by Drew Lock's performance on Monday night.
Well, they just needed to watch him play a team from the SEC West. They could have seen that.
That's Amal Shah. I'm Tim Murray. We'll bring back Danielle Alvari in our final segment. We got a lot to get to wrap things up. It is the Sunday preview here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Sunday Preview. I'm Danielle Alvari here, and you guys are just in time for Tell Me Why. So, Tim, tell me why I should play the Eagles versus the Rams.
Love the Eagles in this spot. I know this is going to be a fade spot, Amal, for many because of the performance that they had against Washington on Sunday. Maybe you're upset. Maybe you had Philadelphia in your survivor pool. Maybe you had Philadelphia in a teaser. I understand. But look at the value here. Philadelphia over the summer was laying 4 against the Rams. Now it's a pick. It seems like a big overreaction to me. And Philadelphia is getting a little bit healthier. Not fully healthy because of Brandon Brooks still being out. But remember, Lane Johnson expected to return for Philadelphia. Miles Sanders expected to be in that backfield. And I'm not completely sold on this Los Angeles Rams team. I thought they played well enough on Sunday. Got a little bit lucky with Jalen Ramsey selling a pass interference call late in that game. So I like the Eagles in this spot. Add a pick. I think it's good value. So give me Philly. Add a pick against the Rams on Sunday.
All right, Amal. Tell me why I should play the Cardinals versus the football team.
You know, you look at Washington, this is a team that really was struggling in that football game against Philadelphia. They're down 17-0, and then a couple of errant throws, particularly high throws by Carson Wentz, where the difference Washington capitalized on those turnovers, punched it in, got going, got the momentum, and Tim alluded to it a couple times. You mentioned earlier, Danielle, as well, 8 sacks for Washington. That was a huge difference. Against Kyler Murray, it's going to be a different ball game, incredibly quick, but it's not just Kyler Murray. We talked about Nuke, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk. But Kenyon Drake, this team was very balanced last week. 180 yards on the ground, 224 through the air. This team, if their balance becomes very dangerous, I just don't know if Dwayne Haskins is the guy in Washington, but he's definitely not going to be the guy on Sunday. I like Arizona to cover the touchdown here.
All right, looks like it's time for us to take a look at the VSiN big board.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Who else? What are some other plays we got going on around the network? Mr. Human's going with the hometown team, Amal. He's taking the 6 points with the Raiders. Adam Candy going with the Seahawks, laying 3.5. I agree with that. Brady Cannon taking the 5.5 with the Giants. I know you're not a big fan of that one, Amal.
Well, you know, the objective in the NFL is you got to score. And it's kind of hard when you have Daniel Jones as your quarterback. Mitchell Trubisky actually looks better than Daniel Jones so far.
Another V-Center going against them all. Wes Reynolds likes Washington getting a touchdown in Arizona. Paulie Howard from the morning program, he's going with the Seahawks laying 4. Once again, that number, it's all over the place. You can get some 3.5, some 4s. I once again like the Seahawks laying the 4. Kelly's going with Dolphins plus the 6. Mitch Moss, Falcons plus the 4.5. Amal, as you've mentioned, Cardinals -7. And right here, Tim Murray going with the Eagles pick. Most egregious play, Amal, on that board.
You know, to me, it's going to be Washington +7. You know, you mentioned Terry McLaurin. Patrick Peterson, I love Terry McLaurin. He's an Ohio State guy. But he's going to be covered by Patrick Peterson. Who else is there? You've talked about this several times. Who is the secondary step-up person? Lack of consistency with the running game for Washington. I think they could be in trouble.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point that you bring up. Terry McLaurin is really the only go-to guy now for Dwayne Haskins. And with Patrick Peterson likely shadowing him the entire game, that's going to be a massive question there for Dwayne Haskins, who continued to struggle offensively in week number 1. And it's a fascinating game to me because we talked about the futures, Amal, a little bit earlier with the NFC West. With the Cardinals at plus 450, I want to see more from this Arizona team. I know there's a ton of liability in Las Vegas about Cliff Kingsbury winning Coach of the Year, and I think it's a possibility because as that year went on, he's talked about it openly, Cliff Kingsbury has. He really didn't know what he was doing, and now he's kind of figuring things out, and he's got the right quarterback for his system.
I'm with you. I think when you look at Kyler Murray, this is a guy that he recruited when Kingsbury was coaching in college. I think he's a perfect fit, tremendous quickness, very cerebral player, and you've got experience. Listen, you've got 2 future Hall of Famers at wide receiver on that team. You've got a very good defense. Chandler Jones, as I mentioned earlier, super stud. I think Washington's got great pieces, Tim, but I just don't think they have the offensive continuity and consistency, and that offensive line leaves a lot to be desired as well.
And Danielle, I know we're going to throw to Brent Musburger his thoughts on Monday Night Football here in just a moment, but we have a couple minutes, Amal, and we've alluded to it. teasers. Now, teasers are interesting, and look around how much juice you're going to have to lay for a teaser. Here at the South Point, a 6-point teaser is minus 125. But when you're looking at teasers, and Amal, I think you could attest to this, try to go through some key numbers. If you can get 7.5, a team laying 7.5, you go through the 7, you go through a 4, another key number, you go through a 3, and then you've got it at 1.5. So I'll give you my teaser. 49ers down to a point against the Jets. So from 7 all the way down to laying just 1. And then the Steelers also down from 7 to a point against the Denver Broncos. That is my teaser. The 49ers make me a little nervous just because, Amal, of the amount of injuries. But I just didn't see enough from the Jets there. So that is why I like the Steelers almost outright laying the 7. I get them now at 1.
I like the play there. You know, for me, I tend to take teams either on the road getting points, or I like to tease teams at home down. But I generally tease up. But today, for this weekend, I've got a rare one in the sense that I've got the Arizona Cardinals down to 1 at home against Washington, and then, of course, the Chicago Bears. I think the Giants are just not a very good football team. I think it's going to be a 3 to 4 win team throughout the course of the season. I still think the Bears' defense is elite. I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage against the Giants, and I think they win this game and cover the teaser number. I think, just because I add one more thing, in the NFL, betting teasers to me, if you're so worried about half a point, everybody talks about 3.5, then those are games you should be teasing if you're that concerned about it. So my point is, I think there's tremendous value on 2-team 6-point teasers at minus 120 in the NFL. You can make a flat-out killing on it.
Agreed.
Amal Shah with the breaking news. The Giants are just not a very good football team. Let's take a look at this video of Brent Musburger talking about Buccaneers and Panthers.
Matt, it's a lot of points. Carolina is not a contender. Carolina not going to the playoffs. The Raiders were able to dominate with their offense, putting a 34 up on them in Carolina. I probably will pass on this because I want to see the Buccaneers one more time. As Coach said, Tom Brady, he was just short of awful in the game. I mean, listen, he's 43 years old, okay? I think everybody thought there was some magic dust there or something. He's thrown a pick 6 in 3 consecutive games. Mm-hmm. I want to see him settle down a little bit. And I'm definitely not giving 9 points because you could just get backdoored in a situation like that so fast. I would pass on this game and keep an eye on the Buccaneers. I watched that game primarily because the Saints are coming to town to play the Raiders. The Saints didn't blow me away either, oh, by the way, and they're going to be without Michael Thomas, their best weapon, when they come in here on Monday night. So I thought if ever there was a chance that Tom Brady and the Buccaneers were going to win an opening game in New Orleans, Saints usually don't play well, by the way, in their opening game would be that, but they didn't play well.
All right, that brings us to our Monday Night Football preview. Saints, Raiders. Tim, where are you going with this?
I'll just say this, and, I'm just happy we have football, and it's been great to watch. It's a sense of normalcy. But, Amal, imagine this city. Monday night, the first home regular season Raider game, the first NFL game in this town at that gorgeous stadium that I drive by every single day, Allegiant Stadium. It would be one of the bigger events we have seen in this town in quite some time. But we'll take it. Beggars can't be choosers. We still get a Monday Night Football game in Las Vegas. It's a lot of points. Matt Newman's, his play, we showed the big board from VSiN, my guys in the desert. He's grabbing the points with the home team. You look back at that game, I'm high on the Saints. But Drew Brees didn't really go down the field at all. A lot of dinks and dunks to Alvin Kamara. No Michael Thomas. The Raiders' defense certainly looked spotty at times against Carolina. But to me, it's a stay away. My mind may change come Monday night. I might want to have a little action on this game. But right now, it's a bit of a stay away because I think the Raiders showed they can score. And I'm a little worried about Drew Brees stretching the ball vertically down the field.
I agree with you completely. To me, when I look at this Raiders team, there's still a lot of areas they can improve. But in terms of the Saints, no Michael Thomas is huge. This guy is one of the top 3 receivers in the National Football League. We saw the records he set last year in terms of receptions. I think it's a big blow for the Saints offense. You mentioned Kamara, Emmanuel Sanders, but I just don't know if it's enough to go into a team's brand new stadium and win on Monday Night Football. Danielle, I think you have to look at the Raiders here +6, but it's going to be interesting to see where this number goes. Does it come down? Does it come up? I expect it to come down only because in Las Vegas, you'd expect to see a lot of Raider money.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part about this game because, Amal, you were in town. I was not. I'm new to town, but you certainly heard the stories about 2 years ago with the Vegas Golden Knights, and people couldn't bet quickly enough on them. But I'm fascinated to know what the final handle is on this game. It's going to be a monster handle, but where's the action going to be? Is it going to be two-way action, Amal, or is it going to be strictly on the Raiders? I'm very curious to see, are the Las Vegas natives already buying in on the Raiders after a 34-30 win over the Carolina Panthers, or do they see the Saints, a team that very well could be the Super Bowl champs, coming to town underneath the touchdown, and they're going to fade the hometown team? I'm very fascinated to see the answer to that question.
Yeah, to me, I think this is a game, if the Raiders win, I would not be surprised at all. This is not that much of an upset to me. I think this is a bad spot for the Saints here. You're coming into a team's home opener, a brand new stadium in a new city, and they're coming off a tremendous road win. Yes, I understand the Saints got up for that game against the Patriots, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. It was an emotional one, but to me, I think this is a Raiders play. I just don't know what's going to be, whether they cover or not, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. If they cover, got a great shot, obviously, to win the game, but I think it's not out of the realm of possibility.
And one thing I loved about last weekend, if you're a Raiders fan, Josh Jacobs was an absolute beast. 3 touchdowns, 93 yards on the ground. Also catching the ball out of the backfield, which I feel like is something he's added a little bit more to that arsenal. 4 catches for 46 yards. Going to be a great one, no doubt, on Monday night with the Saints and Raiders.
Well, we'll have to see. Amal, any final thoughts here?
No, I just know Arizona's going to roll. I'll see you guys next week.
Arizona, Philadelphia, let's get our teasers home, Amal.
Yeah,
let's have a profitable weekend. We need it.
Absolutely. This is VSiN's Sunday preview with a little bit of Monday action in there, too. We'll see you guys next week. Good luck with your bets.